12 months ago, Alex Eala was nobody, ranked 140th in the world, grinding ITF futures, completely off the radar. And now she's seated at Indian Wells, and the most dangerous unseeded player in the draw is standing across the net, ready to end the whole thing right there. That's the story, and it has been building for 52 weeks. Because a year ago, Eala was still figuring out what the professional tour felt like. She'd had a brilliant junior career. The talent was obvious to anyone who watched her. But talent and results are two completely different things, and the gap between the ITF circuit and a WTA 1000 main draw is not a small one. Most players spend years living in that gap. Some never escape it. Eala escaped it in 12 months. She went on a run at the Miami Open as a wild card that nobody in that draw saw coming. She dismantled Grand Slam champions, Svitolina, Madison Keys, back-to-back. Nebao, as a player who had no earthly business being in that section of the draw, she captured her first WTA 125 title in Guadalajara. She reached her first WTA Tour final on the grass courts of Eastbourne. She cracked the top 100, then the top 50, and she arrived here in the Coachella Valley ranked world number 31, the highest any Filipino player, man or woman, has ever been ranked in the entire history of the sport. Think about what that actually means. 1 year, 109 ranking spots. Mate, that is not a hot streak. That is a complete reinvention of what was possible. And she did not coast into Indian Wells. She came off a quarter-final run in Dubai where she took down world number 8 Jasmine Paolini before running into Coco Gauff in a match that had the whole tennis world talking for weeks. She arrived here as a seeded player for the first time in a WTA 1000 event. She got the first round bye that came with it. She had earned every single bit of it. But here's the thing nobody talks about when they describe that kind of rise: the target that comes with it. When you are unranked or ranked outside the top 50, nobody prepares specifically for you. Nobody watches your practice sessions. Nobody digs into your second serve patterns. Nobody studies years of match film to find the tendencies you don't even know you have. The moment you crack the top 32 and earn a seed, all of that changes overnight. You are on the board. Every player remaining in the draw knows exactly who you are, where the openings are, and what they need to do to beat you. And waiting across the net for Eala's first ever seeded debut in a WTA 1000 was Dayana Yastremska. If you have followed the WTA at all over the last few years, you know what that name means. Yastremska is a former world number 21, a 3-time WTA title holder, a player who walked into the 2024 Australian Open as a qualifier. No seeding, no fanfare, nothing guaranteed, and blasted her way to the semifinals, beating seeded players along the way with some of the heaviest, most fearless baseline hitting the women's tour has seen in years. She has faced real adversity, the kind that ends careers for players who don't have her depth of character. She has come back from it. Coming into this match ranked 52nd in the world, she had already dispatched the experienced Chinese veteran Zheng Saisai in the opening round, moving well, is finding her rhythm, acclimating to the notoriously tricky, high-bouncing conditions of the Indian Wells tennis garden. This was not a soft second-round match for a seeded player settling in. This was a genuine test of whether the new ranking was real. And then there was the draw beyond the draw. Because hovering in the third round for whoever survived this match was world number 4 Coco Gauff, American Grand Slam champion, hometown favorite at this event. The best American player in the game right now. Win this match and you are walking onto stadium court against the most talked about player in the sport. Lose and none of it matters. Everything you built to get here ends right now. The narrative stakes were almost too clean to be real. If Eala got through, tennis fans were getting a rematch of their Dubai quarterfinal on one of the biggest stages in the sport. The section of the bracket was already pulling enormous attention from broadcasters and organizers. The pressure and media frenzy surrounding this part of the draw was at a genuine fever pitch before either player had even hit a ball. This match was never going to be just a tennis match, and the crowd made absolutely certain of it. Indian Wells is one of the loudest atmospheres in tennis on any given day. But the day Eala stepped out for that round of 64 match, it felt different. Why, the Filipino diaspora showed up in force. Flags everywhere, chanting, the kind of sustained, passionate noise that turns a tennis court into something that feels much closer to a football stadium than a place where people sit quietly and applaud politely. By the time both players walked out for the warm-up, the stands were packed and the crowd was already in full voice. Yastremska, steely, jaw set, not focused with the composure of a player who has been in loud arenas before, looked like she was not going to let any of it rattle her. But the atmosphere was never fully in either player's control. For Eala, that crowd has quietly become one of her most consistent assets on the WTA tour. She does not just perform better when the stadium is loud, she plays freer. The weight of expectation that would paralyze most 20-year-olds seems to do the opposite to her. She channels it. She feeds on it. When rallies go long and her legs get heavy late in a set, the noise from the stands seems to lift her footwork back up. Fans had already flocked to practice court 6 earlier in the week just to watch her hit forehands in a training session. By match day, the crowd was operating at a completely different emotional register. But before the atmospherics, before the Goff rematch narrative, before any of the stakes, there was a tactical problem to solve. And this one was genuinely fascinating. Indian Wells has one of the most distinctive court surfaces on the entire professional tour. The plexipave hard courts here are gritty. They strip pace off the ball. They produce high, kicking bounces, especially during the heat of a desert afternoon. The ball moves fast through the dry California air, then grabs the court surface on the bounce and slows right down. It is a surface that rewards patience above almost everything else. It rewards players who can generate their own pace, who can build points methodically, who can use heavy topspin to keep their opponents pinned behind the baseline and force them to create pace where there is none. Which is almost exactly how Alexandra Eala plays tennis. She is a lefty from Quezon City who trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Spain. And that forehand, that heavy, looping, left-handed forehand, was built for a surface like this one. She drags right-handed opponents out wide, exposes the ad court, while opens up angles that most players cannot even read until the ball is already past them. Over the past 12 months, that shot has gotten heavier and deeper with every tournament she has played. She is no longer defending from the baseline and waiting for her opponent to miss. She is dictating from it. Her preparation at Indian Wells included work with Laura Siegemund, a player with one of the highest tennis IQs on the women's tour. He is known for winning points through positioning and intelligence rather than power, as well as rising talent Solana Sierra. The emphasis was clearly on court position, on moving forward, on finishing points at the net when the situation invited it. And when those moments came, she took them. But Yastremska's game was built on something completely different. She plays first strike tennis, hyper-aggressive. She flattens out her ground strokes and takes the ball exceptionally earlier than almost any other player on tour, deliberately robbing her opponents of time to set up and swing freely. Her two-handed backhand is a lethal weapon when she is balanced and moving well. Her return of serve is constructed to immediately put the server under pressure from the very first ball of the rally. When Yastremska is locked in and executing her game plan, she is not trading shots with you, and she is dismantling you. Point by point, she makes it feel like you have no time, no angle, no safe shot to hit. The specific problem she faces on a surface like Indian Wells is precision. A flat hitter needs to hit completely through the court for the system to work the way it is designed. On these gritty courts, if Yastremska does not execute with absolute consistency, the ball slows just enough on the bounce to give a fast, anticipatory mover like Eala time to track it down and reset the rally. Just one extra ball, that is all Eala needs. She resets, trusts her fitness, and suddenly Yastremska is being asked to hit a winner from a position where, a moment ago, she thought the point was already over. That one extra ball mentality has been the single most defining feature of Eala's surge into the top 30. She showed it clearly in Dubai against Paolini. When an elite opponent starts redlining and hitting consecutive winners, most young players panic and try to match the aggression shot for shot. Eala does not. She absorbs, she scrambles, she throws up a deep, neutralizing lob and works back to neutral. Her lateral movement has improved dramatically over the last year. She slides into her open stance backhand with the ease of a player who has been scrambling on clay courts her entire career, absorbing heavy pace and redirecting it rather than fighting it. She looks like she has been navigating these pressure situations for a decade. The psychological dimension of this match made everything even more loaded. Eala walked onto that court having already beaten Yastremska. Their only previous head-to-head was at Eastbourne on grass in June 2025, a surface that should have suited Yastremska, where flat hitters have a structural advantage, where the ball stays low and skids through fast. Daniela won 6-1, 6-2. She did not just win, she controlled the match from start to finish, and knowing she had done that on a fast surface, on a surface that was genuinely less suited to her game than the slow, hard courts of the California desert, gave Eala a psychological foundation heading into this match that no coaching session can fully replicate. But Yastremska is not a player who accepts a narrative about herself that she has not authored. You do not reach the semifinals of the Australian Open without an elite champion's mentality, without the capacity to compartmentalize, adapt, and make tactical adjustments while the pressure is fully live. She knew precisely what she had to do. She could not allow Eala to settle into a rhythm behind that cross-court forehand. She had to attack the backhand wing early and often, step inside the baseline on second serve opportunities, and use the drop shot to drag Eala out of her deep court comfort zone. When Yastremska executes that blueprint fully, she is genuinely almost unplayable. She hits winners from positions where most players are simply trying to keep the ball in court. Almost. And here's what the crowd factor does that never gets fully accounted for in tactical analysis. Playing against an opponent who has an entire stadium chanting her name and roaring after every single point won, not a section of the crowd. But the whole place is a different kind of exhaustion. It is not physical. It compounds quietly, game by game, in ways you might not notice until you are suddenly 2 games down in the third set, wondering what shifted. Coco Gauff said it publicly after Dubai. How genuinely difficult it is to compete against someone when the stadium is fully functioning as a home crowd for your opponent. That crowd does not arrive quietly. Fans were lining the practice courts 6 days before the match, just to watch Eala hit forehands. On match day, they were loud from the very first game, and they did not let up. 20 years old, the weight of an entire country behind her, the most dangerous unseeded player on tour across the net. And she does not flinch. What Eala's arc represents goes well beyond any ranking number or individual result. She is the leading edge of something genuinely new in global tennis. And the rise of Southeast Asian players on the WTA, alongside emerging talents from Thailand and Indonesia, is proof of a shift that has been building for years in the region's infrastructure and development of the sport. Eala is the proof of concept. She is demonstrating with actual results that world-class champions can come from anywhere, that the talent exists everywhere. What it needs is the right foundation, the right support, and the relentless daily work ethic to take it all the way. She has all 3, and she is just getting started. For Yastremska, this match carried its own weight. She wanted to prove that power and experience still matter in an era defined by young, fearless baseliners who are unbothered by reputations and undaunted by seedings. That the new generation can be beaten by a player who has already done it at the highest level in the most pressure-loaded environments in the sport. Her firepower on any given day remains genuine. When her Grand Slam semifinal pedigree is real and hard-earned. She came to Indian Wells with a point to make. Both players had everything to prove. Only one could advance. The winner earned the right to step onto stadium court and face Coco Gauff, world number 4, multiple Grand Slam champion, playing in front of her home crowd. If that third-round match materialized, it was going to be the most watched match of the early rounds by a distance. Two generationally talented players, both with massive and passionate fan bases, both fiercely competitive, with a recent head-to-head that had already produced one of the most electric atmospheres of the season. Tournament broadcasters could not have written this section of the draw any better. This is the era women's tennis is living in right now. Established champions fighting to hold ground against players who do not know they are supposed to be intimidated. A fearless new generation that sees a seeded player across the net and does not blink. Early round matches in WTA 1000 events carrying emotional weight that used to belong only to Grand Slam quarterfinals. Eala is not just part of this era. She is one of the people actively defining it. Her world number 31 ranking is not a ceiling. It is a pit stop. Every match she plays at this level adds experience to an arsenal that is still being built. She processes losses and comes back with adjustments. She processes wins and raises the bar for what she demands from herself. That pattern has held consistently across an entire 12-month run. Now tell me what you think. Does Alexandra Eala have the complete game to keep climbing, to push past Goff to crack the WTA top 10 before the end of 2026? Or do you think the experience and raw power of players like Yastremska will find the gaps as the pressure increases? Drop your predictions and your analysis in the comments below. I read every single one. If this breakdown was worth your time, hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel keep producing this kind of analysis. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss a single update as we track every match, every upset, and every championship run through the rest of the Sunshine Double and all the way through the Miami Open.